Well, good morning, everybody, and welcome to Ellensburg, Washington, USA. Thank you for joining us. Home of Charlie and Chris, Geology Department, dominated by two very large personalities in the third row, Waterboy and his friend. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. Scott says it's 5 by 5. Hello, Professor. Thank you. I'm glad to see and hear that that is functional. This is a live broadcast. It is 11:50 a.m. and we will begin this program in 10 minutes. So we're just getting ourselves settled here. You see the title slide, Hydrogeology and its Contribution to Humanitarian Sector. Luciano Marquetto is a visiting geologist from Italy, and he was here last year a little bit with Susan Kaspari, and Susan will be introducing Luciano today. I hope you enjoy this talk. There's Ryan and Josh and Rachel and John and everyone in the room, and we swing you around and talk directly to you all for a few minutes. And Luciano, our speaker, is already speaking with one of our grad students here, and we'll be up and running momentarily. Hi, everybody. Thank you for tuning in. It's a real pleasure to be with you here, live from the Geology Department at Central Washington University, Discovery Hall, room 103, the auditorium. We have a scene now where pretty much everybody's here every Friday that we have a talk, and I mean everybody. I mean faculty, staff, graduate students, undergraduates, a few brand new undergraduate students are here, folks in off the street. It's a good time. Where are you viewing from this morning? Are we still 5 by 5? And I'm way too confident with the microphones this morning. I'm going to call this thing boom boom. Boom boom. If I just call this a speaker, then you're confused, and I'm confused, and everybody's confused. So that's the speaker, an actual person. That's boom boom, the speaker that projects the speaker's voice into the room. David is in the Methow Valley. Larch Madness up there, everybody. Bitterroot Valley, Montana. Riverton, Illinois. Linwood, Washington. Everett, Washington. There's Don, retired firefighter Don from Los Angeles. Doug is up in chilly, Tagish, Yukon Territory. You hang in there, Doug. I'm sure it's about to get even chillier. I'm still wearing shorts, mostly because I work up a sweat setting all this stuff up. And I speak on Friday mornings to the 101 class, so I always have a time crunch after we're done at 11 to hustle to get this all set up by 11:45. TMI, Chandler, Arizona, Selwood, Oregon, Paris, Illinois, Paris, France. Maybe it is Paris, France. Daniel Bertrand, that's French. Stephen, I did not see the Northern Lights last night, although people in Ellensburg did see them, but I can barely stay awake at 9:30 p.m., so you expect me to be up that hour? Come on, Stephen. Lake Ozark, Missouri. There's Brian from Worcester, UK. Hello, Brian. Roslyn, Washington. Vienna, Austria. Boiling Springs, Pennsylvania. Marysville, Washington. Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Go Navy. Spokane Valley. Marysville, Washington. Come on, how many Marysvilles do we have here? Same person over and over again? Clyde Park, Montana. Dallas, Texas, Eugene, Oregon, Horse Heaven Hills, Pocatello, Idaho. Good, that's enough of me. Let me swing you around. Have you enjoyed the room? Maybe you see a familiar face or two. Folks who are not in the shadow zone. And then I need to start concentrating on getting us started for real with Boom Boom. Thanks for joining us. Okay, you can still hear me, right? Hot mic. And talk shit about somebody? Let's get it recorded.
Yeah, this guy Josh.
Yeah? What about him?
He's a dingleberry.
Dingleberry?
He's so rude to me.
I've known this guy for like 3 years. I had no idea that's what he really was.
Yeah. You should block him on everything.
Interesting. You think you know your guy?
You would.
Yeah. Hey, you guys. Thank you. Ryan, you're a ringleader this year. We need. Are you going to be next? Oh, cool.
Yeah, I'm
perfect.
next, yeah.
Perfect. I love it. How's it going? Good. Forgot your name.
Ken,
Ken. Yeah, it's good to
I
see
know
you.
you.
Have we met before?
You're actually my geology advisor. We did an academic plan
That's
a
right.
while back.
Good. Are you here for fun or for Geology 304?
304.
Okay.
Yeah. I think I'm in the right place. Everybody's here, so glad I took this class.
Good. I'm glad you did too. Good to see you again. You're back. You're back. You're back. You keep coming back. That's good.
You're in those upper level classes. They pound you with the content.
How's it going?
Lots of
Good. I saw your comment about
Yeah, that
these
can be hard
guys.
sometimes. Like
Totally agree.
you're working, like you go through 5 weeks of classes.
Really?
5 days of classes.
I'm in the right place.
I just
You are,
remember the weekend. Oh wait, I got a field trip.
He's a big part of
That
it.
can be hard sometimes.
Yeah.
Have you done anything for?
Okay, viewers, can you help me out? I'm about to put this on to our speaker, Luciano. And if you hear Luciano 5x5, can you type that in the live chat? And if that is working, and if I'm still working, then we'll go ahead and turn on Boom Boom and we'll go for it, okay? Thank you. Hey, thanks. Hey, man. Okay, this mic is live right now, and mine is too, so the folks at home can hear you. So can I pin this to the top of your t-shirt here? I'm just going to do this. I think that's going to work just fine. So
Okay.
Let's talk a little bit.
Yeah, I would say so. How can I?
Yeah.
How do I know if it's working?
Right. Let me get my iPad quick. So here's the live chat, Luciano.
Mm-hmm.
And,
Nice.
so viewers, there's a bit of a delay, but Luciano, how long are you going to be with us before you have to go back again?
Just another week.
Another week, yeah.
Yes.
And you got here a week ago or something like that?
2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
So
Is that-
3 weeks in total, and then heading back home, back to the classes.
So the PhD student that's with us, who I have not met yet, is she a student of yours?
She's not, in fact, she's from the same lab as
Okay.
I am in Brazil. One of them, this one it's a different one.
Okay.
But I'm still connected to the Polar and Climatic Center
Nice.
where she is working.
Okay.
From. She has a really nice project as well. So
Sweet.
let's see if you're able to get to know her too.
Okay. I will she's here more than 2 weeks, right? So I'm gonna get a
Yes,
chance
she
to
will
meet
be
her.
for 8 months.
Okay. Well, I will make sure. Okay, so water for you, this I think is functional.
Yes, it's
and-
working. Was working. It's
Yes.
working.
And this little guy it's a kind of delicate
Uh-huh.
when I put your slide up. whatever you do here will also show up there and in YouTube. So if you want to point something out, one option is just doing this.
Much better than using the laser then.
It kind of is because they
that's-
can't see you at home doing that.
Even here, I think they
Even
will
there,
not be able to
it's
see.
ridiculous.
Okay, so
Yeah.
that's better just to point out here.
Either that or truly just with your hand, and then I'll just change to a camera to capture you.
Perfect.
Okay, great. Luciano 5x5, thank you. Okay, well, so let's see if this works properly. Well, good afternoon. Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Testing. Testing. Nothing?
Yes, so I'm fine.
Oh,
Ready.
oh. Well, hey, everybody. Hello, everybody. Testing, testing. Luciano, are you a fan of drinking water?
Sorry?
Do you like water? Is the water going to work for you, or should I get you a martini or something?
No, it's fine.
Okay, good. You guys can hear Luciano okay? Okay. You can just hang tight right here. Good afternoon, everybody. Good afternoon. Hey, we got a party going on in here. We've got a real party going, like a legit party going on in here. It's getting a little rowdy, and rowdy is good. Yes, you guys, click and clack. Yeah, with the palms to the heavens. Welcome, everybody, and thank you. I've got this Boom Boom. That's the new name for our black box over there. So Boom Boom is trying to project my voice just a little bit, as well as working for the home crowd. And we're all settling in. We have the university president with us, I see, and many other very important people, including Blake. So I want to do one quick reminder, and then I'm going to pass this mic over to Hannah, and then she'll pass the mic over to Susan to introduce our speaker today. My blurb is, many of you are here because you've remembered that we're doing a group photo today. So as soon as we are done with this excellent presentation, the entire department, faculty, staff, grad students, undergrads, anybody connected to our scene, please, we're all going right outside. We're going to meet with David Dick, the campus photographer, and he's going to take a bunch of group shots of all of us, and then students only and faculty and the whole thing. So please stick around an extra 15, 20 minutes. It's important to show everybody who we are, with posters in the hallway and everything else. Group photos, don't leave, group photos right after this talk. Hannah, maybe some announcements about classes and other things.
Yes, so just a few announcements here. First, I'll point out Bree McInnes. Hi, Bree. That is our co-chair up there. If you have not signed a form to be on camera, please go see Bree. If you are sitting anywhere from my hand here or my arm on, you are in the shadow zone. You will not be on camera. So you do not, or no, you still need to see Bree, different form, correct? Okay, so anyone who has not seen Bree, go say hi to Bree and sign the form. Thank you. And then another announcement is Audrey. Hello, Audrey. Everyone look at Audrey. Audrey is our instructor for 304 and 504. You need to check in with Audrey to make sure you are getting tallied, that you are here today, and your attendance is accounted for. And then one last announcement, just promoting our talk next week. We have Angie Diefenbach. She is a CWU alum, so she was in our geology department and now works at USGS Cascades Volcano Observatory. And she's coming next week to talk about the Kilauea eruption, so please come join us and meet Angie. And that's all I got, so I'm going to pass it off to Susan.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. All right, it's my pleasure to welcome Luciano Marquetto. Some of you know him. Luciano was here in 2018 for a 6-month visit when he was doing PhD research on some Antarctic ice cores and was using our laboratory facilities up in the ice core lab. So I was able to work closely with Luciano. And Manuela, I'll have you, if you could just raise your hand and say hello. So we have Manuela with us until the end of May. She just arrived last week and is here working on, for her PhD research, is working on an ice core from Peru. So anyways, for the students, they've been very busy in the lab. She hasn't had a chance to meet many people yet, so please introduce yourself and welcome her. But anyways, back to Luciano. So Luciano has been doing a lot with hydrogeology, which is what he'll talk about today. He's your position you started a year or so ago as a professor at the Federal University of Santa Maria, which is in southern Brazil. And he did his MS and his PhD in geosciences at the Federal University of Rio Grande do Sul. So anyways, it's really lovely to have Luciano back, and I kind of told him he was doing this talk, and I should have asked him. Anyways, he very gracefully agreed to do it, so thank you, Luciano.
Thank you, Susan. Hi, everyone. This is really new for me, so I'm a little bit nervous. If I get stuck at some point, just give me a minute. I'm coming back. So as Susan told you, I came here, it's my second time, and I'm working with ice cores here, but I have been doing a lot of different work since I got graduated. And my plan here is to show you something that someone also showed me when I was in undergrad and grad school, just to give you a brief introduction of the humanitarian sector and how hydrogeology can contribute to it. So let's start. Oh, I'm from the Hydrogeology lab in Federal University of Santa Maria. Our research group is the Environmental Monitoring and Planning. And I'm also a groundwater relief member, which is why I'm here talking to you. So let's see if this goes to the next one. Okay, here we are. Susan already gave a brief introduction, so I'm not focusing much on that. But I've been in and out the academy since I got graduated in 2010, and this gave me a really nice view of very different areas. And I think the last speaker on last Friday also told that you don't have a linear way through your work, and I agree with that. And I think that's important for you to get as many experiences as possible. So to focus here, my idea is to show something about the 2016 to present contribution to groundwater relief and to those projects in hydrogeology focused on the humanitarian sector. My plan is not to talk specifically about any projects because of projects restrictions themselves, and also not about any community or group of people specifically, to kind of respect what they're going through. So I'm trying to focus on the hydrogeological examples. I hope that's okay for you. I've been working in collaboration to groundwater relief in humanitarian projects and development projects, and I hope to show you what's the difference in the next slides. And in Asia, Middle East, and also I have been helping remotely with projects in Africa since 2016. So most of the work is volunteer work. And this is the structure I hope to use in my presentation. Just a really brief introduction on groundwater and water demands for now and the future, and a little bit about the humanitarian sector, groundwater relief NGO, so why do they exist and what are they needed for, hydrogeology for the humanitarian sector, a few examples, and this might be what you will mostly enjoy maybe, because when I was in undergrad, I had no idea what a hydrogeologist would do or what a geologist would do in the activities in a daily basis. And I will just show you a few pictures and go through what you might be doing in that same context, okay? Oh, and then some closing thoughts. We were discussing that a few minutes ago. So the water demand has been growing since the 80s, around 1% per year, and it's expected to go to at the same rate in the next 25, 30 years. That seems to be not much, but it is a lot. It's almost 30% from now to 2050. And this is mostly because of population growth and economic development and changes in consumption patterns. This brought us and will bring us more problems with water scarcity. So there are a lot of people who already live in areas that are stressed out. So we have this amount of water and we are getting really close to use that amount for different uses in general. And we expect this to get worse with climate change, because in some places that you already, or you still have a good amount of water, this water is going to drop a lot. And in places you don't have a lot of water, we're getting even more stressed. So this will be one of the biggest challenges of our time, I would say. You probably saw that or any variation of that in your geology classes, but I always like to stress out that when we are talking about liquid fresh water, we're mostly talking about groundwater. So most of that water is underground. That's really, that's huge, because we see only the surface, the rivers, the lakes, and most of our water is invisible, and I will talk to you about that later on. So that means that our solutions might be on groundwater. Of course, it's not that simple. We have to have an integrated way of dealing with water, so surface water and groundwater. But we cannot only rely that we have abundance of groundwater, because right now it is getting polluted and we are having problems with exploitation. And I recommend anyone who is interested in groundwater to check this article here. It was published in the beginning of the year, and they just did a fabulous work going through several different monitoring networks around the world and showing that most of our aquifers are dropping their levels. There are a few good examples on groundwater recovery, but they come with good management. So that's important to stress out. And then we get to the point. Managing groundwater and water in general is really hard in any country. But then if you have something else coming into play, what happens? So if you already have a really reduced budget to deal with management, and then you have, for example, an earthquake or a flood or a drought, and you end up getting more fragile in that region. What happens then? Or if you have an armed conflict or even a chronic governance problem, then you might end up with a humanitarian crisis. And that's the next topic of our talk here. So what is a humanitarian crisis? And in a simple way, It's basically one event or a series of events that will affect a large community, a group of people, anyway, a general community in several ways. So mostly with, oops, no problem. So it will affect their health, their well-being, and their safety. And this humanitarian crisis might prevent this community or this large group of people from getting access to food, clean water, and safe shelter. And just to give you a brief difference or a brief explanation on the difference between humanitarian sector and development sector. So right here on my presentation, I'm just talking in the general way, the humanitarian sector, but it's important for you to understand that the humanitarian aid or humanitarian sector, the emergency response, is usually delivered in disaster zones. So I put a few pictures there of hurricanes, of droughts, of floods, would be that. And it's usually delivered in short term, so months to years. But for the development aid, we are looking to increase or to make better lives for developing countries. But to be fair, it's any country that needs to recover from something on the long term. This means years to basically decades. And the first one, or the former, is focused on saving lives, while the second one, the development sector, is more about bolstering the economic, social, and political development of a specific area. And in the former, the beneficiaries are often those displaced, and I will show you a graph later on of forcibly displaced people, so you can understand the amount of people we're talking about. And for the development aid, we are talking about the host community, usually. And then you have differences in the supply chains. So for example, you might get something locally for the humanitarian response, but most of the things end up coming from abroad. While in the development sector, we're looking for strengthening the local supply chains. And of course, sometimes you have this huge humanitarian crisis that a specific government is not able to deal with that alone. So then you have international management in a response context. While the objective of the development aid is to try to improve the local management. And as you can imagine, those two, you can have a situation that jumps from one to the other, that grows from one to the other, or they can be just simply in different contexts. So you might have a country that only needs development aid and doesn't need emergency response, or you might have a country that needs emergency response that goes to development aid later on. Oh, here is the graph that I told you. If we look at it, we will see in the x-axis the years, the last 10 years basically, 2014 to 2023. And this number on the y-axis are the amount of people displaced forcibly in millions. So we can see, even without the legend, the labels, that it has been growing in the last 10 years. And then you have different status like refugees or internally displaced persons that I'm not focusing in here, but I just wanted to show you that it's growing up. And then we get to the third point of our presentation, which is groundwater relief NGO, the NGO that I started volunteering in 2016. So why do they exist, you can ask. I told you that when you have this humanitarian crisis, you might end up with a population being prevented from accessing clean water, food, and safe shelter. So there is a sector in many organizations that work in the humanitarian or development sector that is called the WASH sector, which stands for Water, Sanity, and Hygiene. So that's a very important part of any organizations who works in those contexts. And this specific sector try to bypass the problems that people are facing to get access to water. And it's an important sector in both emergency and development context. And groundwater relief works on that area of expertise, mostly with groundwater. So the community is of hydrogeologists and groundwater specialists. And I left here the website if you want to take a look later on. It's a UK charity organization that was registered in 2016. And if you don't mind, I will read that objective because I think it's really important to stress out and to show you that they work in both emergency and development sector. So the objective of the NGO is to provide relief, support, income, and livelihood opportunities to people anywhere in the world who live in poverty or lack access to sufficient, safe, acceptable, physically accessible, and affordable water by developing their and their water providers' capacity to sustainably develop groundwater resources. So here you can see that it's for emergencies and development aid as well. And how does the NGO work then? Well, basically, it is a charity organization who has four main areas of work or expertise, if I can say that way. Technical services like reports, I don't know, well, let's stick with reports for now. Training, capacity, and building, technology, and groundwater management. So everything that's related to groundwater, the NGO offers their services and their help to other NGOs, other governments, international NGOs, charities, to try to improve their way of dealing with groundwater. And right now, the membership is around 550 people from different places of the world, and it's a volunteer membership mostly, so people give their time, give their expertise to help on those projects in more than 26 countries. More than 140 projects have been carried out so far. Okay, so then the fourth topic of the presentation is, why do we need something like that? An NGO that works with groundwater wouldn't be enough to have, I don't know, just WASH engineers? And then the short answer is no, because we are dealing with different aspects of water. So the hydrogeologist and the WASH engineer and the WASH manager, they have to work all together because everyone has a different expertise. So we cannot put anyone down or up. And then the long answer is that groundwater relief was started because there existed a gap, a skill shortage gap in the humanitarian and development sectors that was causing high failure rates and also a lot of money to be spent unnecessarily. So I took this data from this work here from 2015, and I understand might be a little old, but still it's a comprehensive study about different regions in Africa and their drilling success rates, so it's still valid, I would say. And what they say is that in Africa, the places that they studied, we have drilling success rates varying from maybe 80%, but some places it's really low, like 50%. And this, and once you get functional wells or successful wells, you still might end up having a big problem because they don't stand the time. So they will just keep failing right in the beginning. So 20-30% failure rates right in the first year and then going down. And well, let me just start talking to you about what a successful well is also, okay? So some people say that in those contexts of emergency, a successful borehole would be a borehole that you can put a hand pump and pump around 1 cubic meter of water per hour, which is okay, but we can expand that understanding. So for example, the volume of water is important, but also the quality of the water is important to consider a borehole was successfully drilled. How long this water is going to be available. And those ones probably people who model will agree with me. So the quality of data that you collect for any model, it's important, otherwise your model is nothing. So a successful borehole must also present good results and good data. The well efficiency, so it's the same with cars, right? You can drive a car who uses a lot of fuel, but at the end of the month you will feel the difference between a more efficient one. And then you can expand this for the whole lifespan of a borehole, which is some decades. This will be a huge amount of money that you just expended unnecessarily. The impact of the abstraction on the environment and other users in the area. So is it worth if I drill a good borehole and start pumping the water and all other users around start getting their boreholes dry or getting more, it's getting more difficult for them to get to this water? So that also has to be taken in account. And the last topic would be, it's important to impede this drilling from degrading the aquifer. So that's also important for a successful borehole, okay? Going back to the drilling rates and the failure rates in the developing countries. So the World Bank estimated that the cost of failure, if you can say that way, is around $1.2 billion in the last 20 years. And this is already old. This is an old reference, so probably it's much more than that. And then you can imagine this money could be used in other works. And why do we have those drilling rates and those early failure rates so high? And Bonsor, again, tells that this is mainly because of a lack of technical capability. And you can agree with that, but if you don't, at least you have to agree that lack of capability is one of the most important parts, because you have to consider also the materials, the borehole drilling team, etc. But it's really important, even if you don't agree that it's the main cause. And then we can go even further and explore, and this graph was created by Groundwater Relief a few years ago when they started looking how many jobs were available in the humanitarian sector. So they started looking in Relief Web, which is the best place to look for those jobs. And they noticed that from the steady 2,000 jobs that were being offered every single day on those specific days, we had around 100 maybe for wash engineers, and only 1 or 2 or none for hydrogeologists. So this can explain a little why do we have those high failure rates and the low, the early failure rates in some countries. And I did this research in a few days ago and observed something very similar, although we had less jobs in general, but we had 2 hydrogeologist jobs, which is okay then. Heading to the examples. So again, I'm not focusing here on the places or the specific projects, but I just want to give you a general context. So I can drink my water. Do you understand what's happening here? This is more common than you might imagine. We have a hand pump here and a latrine up here. And for us, that we understand how groundwater works, contamination works, that might seem logical, but not for everyone, because you can use another logic. For example, okay, I have a latrine here, I need to drill a borehole really close so people can use the latrine and wash their hands. Or you can think the opposite. I have a borehole here, so let's use this water point the most we can, because a borehole can be really expensive to drill. So let's put a latrine and some houses nearby. So it's important that we have a hydrogeologist working on those situations, because when you are siting boreholes, you have to make sure that those are at least a little protected from possible contaminations. Even because we don't know how this borehole was drilled. So we don't know how good the sanitary seal was made, the bentonite seal was made. So that's a lot of uncertainty to just put a source of contamination really close to the borehole. Another example here that might seem obvious to us on this image, but it's not that obvious when we are on the field. So let's say you are a wash engineer, a hydrogeologist who have a very limited budget, and you have to drill several boreholes to sustain a specific community or a group, a refugee camp. And then you think, okay, let's drill, and I will drill the most boreholes I can. You reach water, and then you think, right, let's put the casing, and this borehole is done, let's move to the next one. And then you get to the dry season, and all your boreholes start failing. So then what happens? So people don't have water. And this is another good example that can happen if you don't understand the science behind the applied work. This is my 3rd example, and I think I have a 4th one. So in this case, I can't show you the map exactly, but the sketch might help you understand. It's a well field that was supposed to supply a large region in that country, and people drilled 50 boreholes in a really tight mesh. And when they started pumping, they noticed that each well was affecting the other one. So we had well interference. And at the end, they started taking so much water, so densely packed pumping, that it started upconing from a different aquifer, more saline water. So they had 2 problems. The first one was the salinity, and the second one was the well interference. So at the end, the same wells were, each well was competing for the other well's water. And then you can imagine how much money was put on that could have been designed in a different way. I don't remember exactly the results, but I think at the end, they right now are probably pumping less than 20% of those wells, and not all the time, so they don't get too saline water. And that's my last example. So in this case, I don't remember by heart really good, but we analyzed this well field with 5, 6, maybe 7 boreholes. And in this case, the problem was not they were pretty close, they were not affecting the other well. But when we did the step tests for, the step test is a kind of test that you use to check the well efficiency. It's a pumping test. And we did the pumping tests for those wells, and we observed efficiencies that were really low, from 40 to 60%, and you usually would aim for 70 or 80%. So in the long run, you could expect those boreholes to be really costly to maintain. And okay, so my sixth topic is what you would be doing if you were working in the hydrogeology context in a humanitarian sector. So basically, the work of a hydrogeologist would be the same anywhere, and just in different contexts with different logistical challenges maybe. But let's take a look on what I observed along the way. So you would be drilling, or you would be supervising the drillings of one or multiple boreholes, and that's really important because that's when you measure penetration rates, when you measure mud flow rates, mud density, when you collect the samples and make sure those samples are well collected. And sometimes can be hard. So for example, on this image to the left here, this is a borehole that we were drilling in a really large refugee camp. So it was around 800,000 people, so almost 1 million people that had to flee in a really short time from their country. And there were lots of different organizations working together on the same refugee camp. And at that point, our group was managing around 10 or 15 drilling sites at the same time. So that's really hard to do. But at the end, we could provide good water and in good amount of water for those people. Another thing you would be doing, logging the samples, so checking the details of what you're drilling to find the best place to put your screens and the best places to avoid, because then you might, if you don't look at your logging adequately, you might end up putting your screens where there's water intake, maybe in a clay layer, and then you have no water to pump out. And this is also a very repetitive job, but it's very important. You might be procuring, checking the materials when they arrive, or improving what you find locally. So again, sometimes the logistical challenges are the most difficult. So you might end up having a clay layer, so when you're building or you're constructing your borehole, at some point you want to protect it from water from the top, so you just put around the casing a clay seal that goes, it depends on the depth, but you can put maybe 3 meters, 10 feet, right? Okay, so you can put 10 feet, maybe 20 feet of clay to be sure that the water from the top will not reach the bottom aquifer, for example. And sometimes the clay available, it's just locally sorted or sourced. And what you're looking for is really good bentonite to do that, because it expands and closes any possible gap. So this is something you might be doing. Or, for example, filter pack, sometimes also called gravel pack, that you put around your screens to help you, the water comes in a better way. As people talk about them as filter packs or gravel pack, sometimes when you source it, they just give you gravels in any size, and you need to sort it out, and it's based on what you get from your aquifer on the logging, and it's based on what you decide on the screens and screen slots. So you cannot just put any size of filter pack in a borehole. And well, you can end up carrying a lot of pumping tests, because this is maybe one of the best ways of getting to understand some specific characteristics of the aquifer as transmissivity and storativity, so, and also the well efficiency. So this is something that I did a few, and you end up always doing more and more. You might carry some chemical analysis. So I was talking, we were talking about arsenic, for example. So in some of the places I've been, we didn't have problems with arsenic, but people were afraid of arsenic because in other parts of the country, arsenic was a big problem. And you know it's carcinogenic and it's a big problem of poisoning and causing health issues. So you have to be testing all the time during the pumping tests or going around checking different wells. And you might be doing some geophysics and even geological mapping and a lot of things that you learn here as a geologist, you would be applying in a hydrogeology field. And now I'm getting to my closing thoughts. First of all, I hope that this presentation was a good introduction to hydrogeology for those who don't know or didn't know what hydrogeology was. And for those who did know, I hope it was a good introduction to the humanitarian sector, because as you saw, we are having more and more people displaced, and we need more and more professionals, good professionals, to work on this area. And I just want to finish with two, it's kind of, so what we are doing right now in our hydrogeology lab. Again, I just started a year ago on that university, so we are still setting things up. But one of the first projects that I wanted to start was a collaboration with groundwater relief, because right now I can't go to the field as frequent with them as I wanted. So there are lots of specific research questions that arise when you are on the field in different places, but you just don't have the time and you just don't have the staff needed to answer those questions. So right now, one of our ideas is to collaborate with groundwater relief to try to expand on those questions. And we are working with, for this first case study, we are working with University of Sabah in Marib, Yemen, in improving their water balance, because it's an area with a lot of irrigation happening. But at the same time, they do have some problems with declining water levels in like maybe 10, 20 meters in a few years. So it's a really critical situation for them. And the other project I want to just briefly mention is this one called Divulga Hidrogel, which would be something like disseminating the hydrogeological knowledge for people, for the community. Because we understand that only by doing that, by bringing this knowledge to people, we will be able to better manage those resources. So it's based on the report from UNESCO groundwater, making the invisible visible, because again, what we see on the surface, the rivers, it's just one part of the whole water cycle. And it's really easy, if you think about, to get familiar with surface water, because if you have a dry season, you'll see the lakes and the rivers going down, but you don't see that happening to aquifers. So we have to make it more familiar to people. And our work right now is to bring that knowledge to schools, basically, for teachers, like geography teachers and science teachers, so they can spread that knowledge, and also to students in using very simple and cheap physical models to show them how groundwater works, how contamination works. And Well, I'm finishing here, so we have a lot of time for questions, but if you have any question that you don't want to ask right now, feel free to contact me on that email. So again, this is my university. If you want to check out, this is my lab, and this is the working group that we are working right now. Thank you.
Thank you, Luciani. Excellent talk. We're going to do some questions now, and if Luciani can repeat the question that he hears so that our home people can hear, that would be wonderful. Questions?
Up there. Yeah, it's you. Sorry.
I was just wondering what the process is like to start volunteering with groundwater relief. And are you looking for professionals in the field or student volunteers as well?
Okay, so the question is, how do we get engaged with groundwater relief? So first of all, it's important to note that groundwater relief is just one of the possibilities. So there are lots of different organizations. I'm just mentioning here because that's who I've been working with. But basically, you can check their website, and there's a form to fill. And as far as I can remember, it's mostly for people who are graduated already with some background in groundwater. But still, it's, I would say that you can just fill the form, and this will get you connected to the newsletter, so sometimes there are opportunities. I started in 2017, so I went to the UK for an intern program to stay for 2 months. I ended up staying for 6 months maybe, and I wasn't working specifically or only with groundwater. So at the end, they still took me in based on the, you know, they took me in comparing to other candidates, and I learned a lot there. So my suggestion is that you sign in for their newsletter. Let's see, there was someone here? Okay.
I'm just wondering, like, if you had an experience or what made you realize that this is exactly what you wanted to do, and like, I guess more of a personal question.
Oh yeah. So, can you just repeat so I can repeat to people at home?
Like, what experience or what time in your life made you realize that hydrogeology and humanitarian is what you wanted to do?
Okay, so how did I realize that this was something I wanted to do with my life? I think that's a very tough question because it makes us think in a very linear way. And to be fair, I think we are more like, at least for me, we are interested in different areas. And when you learn on a new one, you can get better on another one. And then, you know, the opportunities just keep arising. So I wouldn't say that it was an exact event that made me get interested to that. But if I was going to put let's see, a time on that, would be when I was in the undergrad school in geology. We had someone come to our class and talk about a different topic, and at the end he just mentioned something. I stayed for a year working in Africa, drilling boreholes for the communities and hospitals, and that kind of gave the spark. But then you have to move on and keep working on your ideas. So I wouldn't say it's really, you know, well, that made me change, that changed everything, but not sure if it helped. I'm just mumbling here, but.
That's a good answer.
Okay, yeah, thanks. We had questions up there. Okay.
Yeah, great presentation. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm curious about if you could speak to, I know you can't give specific details,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm really curious about the water law component of this, because I'm sure when you go into like different landscapes, I know personally working in groundwater here, like water law has been kind of a hurdle or a thing that I've had to learn a lot. Do you feel like you've had
So if I had to learn a lot about the water laws in different places that I worked, you end up learning some parts, but it's just impossible to understand everything. And it's also important to remember that we are not working alone. So usually what happens is that we have a team of people. You might be the only hydrogeologist, that's true, but you have people from that specific place who already worked with groundwater in one way or another, or with water management. And those people help you get better and understand better the water laws. Because at least if I think about Brazil, where I'm from, and the developing projects I've worked in, there are several specificities anyway, that it's really hard to remember, really hard to get to know. So the best solution for that would be to work as a group, as a team.
Well, I was trying to figure out something. I saw where you had different levels in the ground, summer and winter. I was trying to think, have they ever bore a hole sideways and uphill a little bit to get hydroelectric power and get the water at the same time?
So if someone already tried drilling sideways,
and get the head pressure.
to get more head pressure.
Then you can get electricity and the water at the same time.
I never seen any projects on that sense. What usually is done in, at least again in South Brazil, we protect our springs and find a way for them to just go on gravity, but not necessarily to generate electricity. But that might be an interesting thought to explore further. So again, we have, we have some.
Yeah, I've got it.
Oh, yeah. So we have more than those two projects. So at the end, if someone gets interested in collaborations in other types of works, we are open. So right now it's another professor who's in environmental engineer, and I, as a geologist, who are running the hydrogeology lab, and all collaboration is welcome to try different things.
Couple more?
Susan.
Luciano, how long have you, when you've gone in the field, how long do you go for, and how much notice do you have? Like, how quickly do they try to mobilize when there's a real crisis?
Oh, okay. So how long did I stay on the field in each project, basically, and how fast they try to mobilize us when there's something happening? So the longest stay the longest time I stayed in a project was 6 months away from home. But the projects themselves, they last much longer than that. So usually 2 years maybe, or even more than that. So it's not only one geologist who stays on that project. There is a handover to keep the project going. And there is, how can I say that, a group inside groundwater relief that they were trying to sort out to be an emergency response group, that you also have to be a member and then apply for that. I also applied, and theoretically I'm part of the emergency response group that is supposed to be people who can mobilize in maybe 1 week or something like that. But as the membership is really spread out around the world, so it's kind of easier than to get people close by to the projects, to the emergencies. But it's kind of how that NGO works. For different NGOs, you might have different ways of dealing with that.
One more? Okay, let's thank Luciano again, please.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, everybody. We'll see you next Friday. And right now, geology, we're all going out. Take a left as soon as you go out those doors. Thank you. Group photos. You did an excellent job.
Oh, nice. Thank you. Thank you very much.
I hope you felt comfortable as you got rolling.
Yeah, kind of. I just went on it with the flow, but I felt really nervous with everything like that.
Yeah.
But thanks for an invitation. I'm really glad I accepted.
That was wonderful. Thank you.
Nice.
I'm going to take your microphone,
Please.
and I think there'll be a few folks for you to chat with here.
Okay.
So, thank you.
Thank you.
Hi.
I'm Bob Wheeler from Camas, Washington.
Hi, Bob.
And I've been watching you for almost a year on YouTube.
Wonderful.
I just wanted to say I appreciate all the teaching you've been doing.
Thank you, Bob.
It's been wonderful.
Thank you.
My wife and I are stopping in Ellensburg partly because of the campus. We went up to Leavenworth, and then Ellensburg has a lot of fun stuff in it.
Okay, good.
We're looking around.
Well, good. Can we chat a little bit more? In just a bit, I'm gonna finish the live stream here, and if you feel like you can stick around for a couple more minutes, I'd love to visit more with you. Thank you, Bob. Okay. As you heard, we are all heading outdoors to have a little photography session with our geology department. And so we're rushing out of the room a little quicker than we normally do. But I thank you for being with us here live. And if you're watching this in replay, I hope you enjoyed this presentation. We don't do many groundwater or hydrogeology talks, but I really enjoyed that, and I hope that you did too. So I need to run. Thanks. Next Friday, October 18th, will be a special talk by former student here, Angela Diefenbach, who works for the Cascade Volcano Observatory, and she does some rather impressive things with drones and monitoring eruptions. So she'll be focusing on Kilauea, but other things as well that she's been involved with. Special show next Friday. Thanks, everybody. Love you, and goodbye from Ellensburg, Washington, USA. End stream. Elif, you want to start singing? Can we get you on camera? I just heard you're a singer.
Where did you hear that?
Oh, a little birdie told me.